All right, welcome to LouTube and this lesson on algebra review part one. I'm going to do this review of algebra in two parts. So this is going to be part one, which goes forward. This is for basically grade 9 and grade 10 math, depending on where you are. Each grade 9 and grade 10s should be looking at this kind of stuff, and this is the unit that I do typically in my grade 10 class, okay? We're going to look in this particular portion on collecting like terms, the distributive property, and multiplying binomials. So those are the three topics that are largely going to be talked about. So before I begin, I'm just going to go over some terminology again, and you'll see the word terms here, right here, okay? And terms is a terminology that you should be familiar with. And terms are separated by addition and subtraction as shown here. So minus 2y is a term, plus 8x squared is a term. And you'll notice that I always give the sign that is in front of it with the term. 5y is positive because there's no negative sign in front of it. So this here would be positive 5y. And then we have different kinds of terms, okay? We have terms that have letters in them, and we have terms that do not. So minus 6y and plus 8 are special terms because they have no letter in them. And so these two terms would be referred to as constant terms, okay? That's the minus 6 and the plus 8. They don't have a letter part, so they're constant. They're the value that they are. Okay, now I'll also note that these terms, also each term, especially the non-constant terms, have different parts, okay? Each part of them is identified by the first part, which is the number part, also known as the numerical coefficient, and the second part, which is the x squared in this case, which is the letter part or literal coefficient. And it's important to identify that there are two different parts there because in order to make like terms, we must have identical letter parts. So if I look across this question here, what has an identical letter part to x squared is this one term over here, 8x squared. So these two are like terms because of that, okay? And only like terms, I'm going to erase a bit here, only like terms can be collected. So what I like to do often is collect them, but when I do, I look for terms first in the alphabet. So the closer to the front of the alphabet, they go first. So if there was an A term here, I'd be using it first. In this case, we have x squareds, we have y's, and we have constant terms. So I'm going to do my x squareds first, okay? And I look for those two terms. Those two terms can be collected together because they are like. And in this particular case, those two terms are 8x squared plus 7x squared, which gives me 15x squared, okay? I'm writing with my finger, folks, on the screen, so it's not the easiest, but it works. And then the next time I'm going to do it, I'm looking for the next letter in the alphabet, which in this case is the Y's, and I'll double underline these, okay, the Y terms, and I have now two Y terms. One is 5y and one is minus 2y, and I bring these two together. 5y minus 2y is like 5y take away 2y. Sometimes I like to say to kids, think of it in terms of like 5 yo-yos minus 2 yo-yos, and I'm going to end up with 3 yo-yos or 3 y's, 3y. And I'm now getting closer to finishing my question. The last thing is I would take my constant terms and I collect them together. I bring them together. So I have minus 6 plus 8, and that is going to give me plus 2. And if you're not sure about how, adding or collecting these, it's good to use your calculator to help you do that. That essentially is simplifying, making the question more simple by collecting the like terms, okay? We went from 6 terms here to 3 terms, so we had 6 terms in the original question here. Whoops, six terms, let me get rid of that line. I meant to highlight it there. 6 terms in the original question to a total of 3 terms over here in this part of the question, okay? So clearly, that's a more simple question. That's why they use the word simplify, okay? And let's go down now to the next part, which was really on the distributive property, expand and simplify, okay? By the way, the previous question on simplifying, that's a concept that's usually taught as early as grade 7 or 8. Definitely should have been taught in grade 9. And by grade 10, we're sort of getting more comfortable. We're always reviewing those things, okay? In this particular case, we're going to look at something maybe a little more new to you, in that we have what is referred to as using the distributive property. And the distributive property applies when we have a number in front of a bracket, and we want to distribute that number into the bracket, and it's multiplication, okay? We cannot add in this particular case, let me, if I can get my mouse working here, I cannot add let's see if I get my mouse showing a little better. There we go. I cannot add this 2k minus 7 because they are not like terms. So I must distribute the 7 onto these two things, okay? And so typically what we do here is we take the 7 and we apply it into each of these. You'll notice that the plus 8 out front, the 8 in front, doesn't affect it. And the same thing will apply over here, is that what we have is the minus 4 will not be impacted. It'll just be the 2 times the k and the 2 times the minus 4. And so these two terms, the 8 constant and the minus 4k, will just be rewritten in this expression, and then we will collect them later. So if I'm going to do my answer here, what I'm going to get is 8 plus, and now I'm going to say 7 times 2k, that is going to be 14k, okay? Then the 7 times the minus 7, which is minus 49, okay? And then I'm going to write minus 4k again because it's not multiplying. Then it's plus 2 times the k, which will be plus 2k, and then finally 2 times minus 4, which is minus 8. And now I've basically applied my distributive property here in this term, these two answers here, and this over here in these two answers here. The minus 4k and the 8 weren't really, there was no impact. They had no impact. Now, what I can do is I can look to collect like terms. So k is my term with letters, so I look for all the terms with k. So I got 14k, minus 4k, and plus 2k. And what I'm going to do is bring all of those together. And if I go 14, take away 4, so 14 kongs minus 4 kongs would leave me with 10 kongs. And then I'd add 2 more kongs and I'd end up with 12k. And so there's my answer, 12k, okay? Try to get that k a little more connected here. Let me fix that k a little bit. It looks funny. Okay. Not easy writing here on the computer screen, but I'm doing the best I can. Then last but not least, I'll use red and I'll circle all my constant terms, right? 8 minus 49 minus 8. So 8 minus 49 minus 8. Well, in fact, what I recognize here fairly quickly is if I have 8 minus 8, that's 0. So I'm just going to be left with minus 49. But if you're not sure, take your calculator, put in 8 minus 48 minus 8, and get an answer. You will come up with the answer of minus 49. And so then I write my answer minus 49. And there is my final answer. In this case, I like to box it. And there it is. It's done for me. I expanded first, then I simplified. Okay, so the expanding was these parts here that I did here, giving me my answers in here, and then I finally simplified down here. Okay, now I'm going to move on down a little further into the sheet and do some multiplying binomials, okay? And this gets a little bit trickier. And we practice these in different ways. And so the first method one I'm going to do is I'm going to do the kind of a shortcut method where I've taught you that when you multiply two binomials, you should end up with a trinomial. Most of the time, that's what happens. We do end up with a trinomial. There are times when we don't. Okay, so x plus 7 is what we're going to multiply times x minus 4, and those are both binomials. We cannot simplify them because they are not like terms, but we can multiply them. And what we do is we multiply the two x's and we get x squared. Okay, that's the first step. And then I suggest to students multiply the two numbers to get the last term, and that is 7 times minus 4, which is minus 28. Okay, and then the last term is always going to be an x term, and it's going to be these two numbers now added together. In this case, it's plus 7 minus 4, which will be plus 3. Okay, x. Sorry about the plus sign there. Let me fix that. Okay. Okay, so we end up with a trinomial that is three different terms, okay, that is x squared plus 3x minus 28. And that system works really good as long as, and I'm going to emphasize that, you have an x here and an x here. You cannot use this method if you have, as in the next question, where you have a 2 and a 7 in front of the y's. We cannot do that. Okay, so we have to recognize when we can use that sort of cheater method. I give a lot of questions that are like in that cheater method platform, but not all of them. You are expected to know how to do them in the other method as well. Okay, so in this method, what we do is we do the same sort of thing. We take this first two are multiplying together. We call that the first two. Okay, and then it's 2 times 7, which is 14. And y times y, which is y squared, okay? Then we take the 2y and multiply it by the minus 3. And 2 times 3 is 6, and it's minus, because it's a plus times a minus, minus 6y. Then the next one, we're done now. The 2y has multiplied by both of the terms in the other binomial. So now we take the 6 and we multiply it by them, and we call this the inside 2. So they use the first 2, outside 2, inside 2, which is 6 times 7, which is plus positive 42y, and then finally 6 times minus 3. And 6 times minus 3 is minus 18. When you do this method in that particular order, you will always end up with two like terms in the middle. Okay, these two terms have no like terms. The 14y squared, okay, the 14y squared here, and the minus 18 don't have any like terms to combine, but the two middle ones can. And so what we do now is we will combine those two. We will write the 14y squared here, and I can even write my minus 18 on the end. But then I look to bring these two together, and minus 6 plus 42 is positive 36y. And that is our final answer. And again, we have a trinomial. 1, 2, 3 terms, 14y squared one term, 36y another term, and minus 18 another term. Okay? That is basically how that system works. Okay? Now, the last question here is a little trickier. What I've done is I've basically put two sets of binomials multiplied between each other with a plus sign in the middle. And so these two are not let me go like this in green. This is multiplication, but I do not have that here. This is a plus. Okay, and so I can do each of these and then add the terms together by simplifying. So the first one is going to be x squared, and then I'm going to add these two to get the middle term, which will be minus 4, and 3 is minus 1x. And then I'm going to multiply those two right there, which is minus 12. 3 times 4. Then I go to the next one and I do the same thing. I say plus, because it's adding, x squared, okay? And then I'm going to add the 2, 8 minus, so that's 8 minus 5 is plus 3x. Okay, hopefully that looks like a 3 a bit. Get a little bit of a dot in the middle there to make it more like a 3. And then 8 times minus 5 is minus 40. Okay, whoops, my bad, sorry. There it is. Better correct that. That'll be a minus 40 there. Let me just get that 40 in there. Okay, hopefully that looks good enough for you. You can recognize it. Now I can collect like terms. And what I'll notice is that I have 2x squareds. Well, x squared plus x squared is going to give me 2x squared. Okay, then I'm going to look here and I've got 2 x terms. I have minus x plus 3x. Minus x plus 3x is plus, whoops, got to go to black here, plus 2x. And then finally, I have minus 12 minus 40. And I know I've taught this trick in class. When you have a minus and a minus together, add them and it becomes a bigger minus. And so that's minus 52. And I can box off my answer. And again, I have a trinomial. I have 3 terms here. I have an 2x squared plus 2x minus 52, and that is my final answer. That's the end of part 1 on the review. Part 2 of the review is listed here below, and you should have the sheets for it. I will make a separate video for that particular one. Hopefully you've enjoyed this one, and I'm now going to end my video.